On behalf of Aaron, we are really pleased to be here with you all today to tell some stories about high pressure processing and how it has a dramatic impact on enabling cleaner labels. So I also want to start off by thanking Aaron. So we are a very, very proud supplier to Nature's Variety. Truth be known, Universal Pure got into the HPP business because of Nature's Variety. So we're appreciative of that big time.
I'm glad you remember that.
So what we're going to do with you all today is we're going to give high-level overview of some trends as it relates to cleaner labels and how the technology can help companies pursue that offering in their pet foods. We're also going to talk a little bit about what is high-pressure processing, or HPP. Anxious to kind of just real quick show of hands, how many people are familiar with HPP, the technology? Nice, good. Would you be kind enough to give the presentation in about 20 minutes?
No, I just know what I know.
Awesome, great. So we'll give an overview of HPP. We'll talk a little bit about why HPP, in our opinion, is the preferred clean label technology in the pet space. And then Aaron will talk about the Nature's Variety story and share some insights relative to the success Nature's Variety has had. And then we'll close because we want to try and leave at least 10 minutes or so for questions. We want to make it highly interactive toward the latter part of the conversation with you all today. So first, let me start by talking about one trend, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody. Some of you that attended earlier sessions heard this theme, but the humanization of pet food. So when you see treat companies talking about human grade in their labeling, when we think about pet owners and how they are so focused on the quality, the wholesomeness of the products that they're serving their pets, as pet owners continue to look at cleaner labels, when we think of the sophistication of consumers for human food, we all know that as pet owners, as you're looking at the products that your pets are consuming, more and more focus on ensuring that there are no preservatives, the natural components of the product, no chemicals. So we'll talk about HPP and how that enables that. But the cleaner label trend, make no mistake about it, we all believe is continuing to gain momentum. We're seeing it in the decks on ingredient labels. So that trend continues to pick up momentum. And the other thing that we talk a lot about within the high pressure processing world is, while we'll focus on cleaner labels today, but one of the themes that you'll also hear us talk about is food safety and how relevant and purposeful high pressure processing is for ensuring the safety of products that are offered to our pets. So with that, I'm going to flip it over to Aaron and let him kind of go through some other trends.
Yeah, so one that might seem a bit of a no-brainer is pet health, right? We all want our pets, or really, frankly, our family members, to have long, happy, healthy lives, and we see that through food. And from one study that we found, it was about 94% of pet parents see pet health as the number one choice or number one factor as they choose their pet's food. So it's clearly a really important component is what is that food that we're putting into our pets' bowls, and recognizing that food has to substantiate 100% of the nutritional needs of the pet, and it needs to be safe. As well, going along with the humanization trends that Mark talked about, minimally processed is clearly something that the consumers have been moving towards as you think about what's happening on the human side and in the natural segment there, and clearly falling into the pet segment also. That has really led to a rapid development on the raw growth side. We've certainly seen that within our own brand, Instinct, the raw brand. We've seen growth in excess of 20% over the last several years, and consumers are moving more towards these types of products. In the GFK presentation this morning, we talked a lot about preserved foods like freeze-dried and others that are just the raw product with moisture removed through a freeze-drying process. But the raw trend is clearly a pretty hot one right now. But with that also comes some contamination risks. As we think about the world in which we live, we buy poultry products, for example, from USDA facilities, and there is a contamination risk of certain pathogens that we have to be thinking about. That has certainly been something that we've all seen in the last few months. Since the beginning of the year, there's been several different raw recalls, and some may think, hey, what's going on here? And I think it's important to think about a quality food safety system as a complete package. So yes, good manufacturing processes and practices are incredibly important within a quality and food safety system. Yes, it's important to have good vendor qualification practices and select high quality ingredients from reputable suppliers, but this is not enough. Again, we recognize that these pathogens are naturally occurring in the environment, they're in some of the products, and we have to have a validated step within our quality and food safety system that can attack those things and eradicate that particular bacteria from the product. We, as Nature's Variety, we've chosen HPP as that process. So Mark's going to talk a bit about what that is.
So as we get into the technology a little bit, I just want to build on what Aaron just talked about with regard to food safety. And again, certainly understand that our focus here is talking about cleaner labels and how the technology can help enable cleaner labels for raw. But I can also assure you that when we think at Universal Pure about our role in the supply chain for pet, our greater cause is always focused on food safety and making sure that we understand how we can help companies ensure that the safety of those products that they're offering to their pets in their bowls are safe, so that we help ensure companies are not in the headlines for the wrong reasons. So let me talk a little bit about the technology, because for those of you familiar with the technology, you're going to hear some things that you probably know already. And we get really, really passionate when we talk about high pressure processing, because we believe and we know that the technology does make a difference in the world. And when it comes to pet, the interest, the inquiries, the trends that we're seeing continue to gain a lot of momentum. So when we talk about the technology, one thing to begin with, high pressure processing is non-thermal. And we emphasize that because when you're talking about the impact on the nutrient value, the performance and the integrity of the product, being non-thermal, the products are able to retain that nutrient value. So versus thermal processing or pasteurization, the impact would be different. The technology itself, not to oversimplify it, but the reality is it's water and pressure. And we're talking about pressure that's intense pressure. Pressure that's more intense than the deepest parts of the ocean. So with high pressure processing, you get the temperature, the pressure up to 87,000 psi. So as we think about this technology and you have that combination of water and pressure, it activates the pathogens and addresses spoilage organisms. So when we think about the technology and we know the impact that it has, this will give you a sense of the benefits. We've already talked about food safety. We've talked about the importance of the headlines and making sure that the technology can be a critical part of ensuring brand equity and company reputation. And we talk a lot about the importance of shelf life. We'll talk a little bit later briefly about how this can have a positive impact on sustainability initiatives in your companies. And lastly, and very, very importantly, our purpose today. The technology is absolutely an enabler for manufacturers of pet foods to take a look at formulations and how they can formulate great tasting products without chemicals, without preservatives. So that's a quick overview of the technology. Let me just give you a kind of a visual. So for any of you that have not had the opportunity to visit a high pressure processing center of excellence, at Universal Pure we've got 4 locations, so hit me up afterwards if you'd like to learn a little bit more about it. But this visual here that we've got, so you can see the technology. It starts, product is actually loaded in baskets or vessels. These baskets are then moving in conveyor-wise. They move into the vessel. The vessel moves into the frame of the piece of equipment. Once it's in the frame, the pre-fill pump will fill the vessel with water. And as the water fills, then the product is pressurized. And you can see the arrows. The pressure is isostatic. So a lot of people ask about about packaging integrity. They ask about the impact of 87,000 PSI. But given the fact that it's isostatic and it's uniform pressure across the products, the integrity of that product, it hits it uniformly, right? So it's going to address and inactivate those pathogens and those spoilage organisms under that intense pressure. And after that, the product then is drained, the water's drained out of the vessel, product moves out of the vessel in the frame, on the conveyor belt out to pack off. So the product itself is in its packaging already. It's not naked product exposed, it's in its finished packaging and goes through that system. By doing that, under that pressure, it gets back to those benefits of the technology. When we talk about the importance of this technology, and as it relates to why so many people view it as the technology for clean label technology and clean label offerings, it does start with that dynamic of formulation. And as companies understand that they can avoid using various preservatives or chemicals because of this technology, they focus on that, understanding that pet owners are so much more conscientious of what's going into their products for their pets. And they're looking for, just like we as humans are looking more and more for that clean label deck. We talk about other benefits here. It's clear we talk about the alignment with those pet owner interests. I've alluded to some of the other benefits of the technology, the brand protection, competitive differentiation. The technology, whether it's in utilization of cleaner label offerings, the technology can help manufacturers of pet products enter new categories potentially, come out with new products. So it's another way of not only addressing cleaner label, but looking at business models and how it can enhance companies' business models and the products that they offer. I alluded to the fact of sustainability. When you have shelf life extension, you have the opportunity to mitigate and minimize food waste. So it does feed very nicely into various corporate sustainability initiatives. And lastly, and I've alluded to this already, the innovation. You know, so many of your companies, you pride yourselves on the innovation engines that are bringing products to the marketplace. High pressure processing can be a technology that can help enable that. So with that, Aaron's going to tell a Nature's Variety story.
Great, thanks, Mark. So how did we get the HPP? This goes back a few years. So I started with the company in 2008, and one of the first questions that our CEO asked our then, since retired director of quality, what keeps you up at night? And his answer was, well, we sell a raw product we buy from USDA facilities that allow salmonella to be in the product, and we don't have a kill step. That's what keeps me up at night. And so we ventured very rapidly into, okay, how do we go address this issue? Because looking forward at what clearly trends were going to be within the food safety side, how do we go address that? And we started to do a lot of research and understanding of what particular types of processes were available. And we had a couple of key parameters that we needed to think about. One was that ingredients on the label really need to tie to the nutritional benefits of the pet. We're very averse to other kind of or ingredients that aren't really directly tied to the nutritional benefit. We have a nutrition council within our organization that has outside consulting vets that help us understand, and we have good conversations about what are we going to put in, what are we not going to put in. And so that was an important thing. We didn't want to have a lot of these chemical type things inside the product. We wanted to be able to do it as naturally as possible and as minimally processed as possible. We recognize that the consumer just expects the product to be safe. That's table stakes for them. When you or I go to the grocery store or go to the pet store, we're expecting the product to be safe for our pets and for our families, and that's a given. So we have to make sure that we can meet that qualification. And as I mentioned, we live in a world where USDA and FDA standards are different. One allows for particular levels of pathogens, another one doesn't. So even though we buy product with USDA stamped product on there, we know that there's going to be some particular contamination risk. We started doing a lot of testing in 2008 and 2009, and we really found kind of three options. One, we could cook the product. Well, Instinct the Raw brand wouldn't be Instinct the Raw brand if we cooked it, so that doesn't work so well. Two, we could use irradiation. Well, that might be effective and used in some of their products. We weren't comfortable with that. There's degradation to the product, and it's not very consumer accepted. And then the third one was this HPP thing that we had heard about. And so we embarked on a pretty deep dive into what does this do? What does it do to the vitamin and mineral content? Is there any degradation that occurs? And what we found through a lot of study through 2009 was we found that it did not create or cause any vitamin or mineral degradation. And so we started doing some test work. We shifted it over to one particular line of product. And we found that that was exactly the answer that we've been seeking was HPP, and so we employed that in 2010. And we've been doing it ever since, and we've learned a lot since then. So we've done a tremendous amount of third-party studies and continuing to look at how we can utilize it better, understanding dwell times and temperatures and lots of things, and we found it to be a very, very good process for us and one that meets all of our requirements that we had. Because one of the key ones that I mentioned before was minimally processed. How can we keep that raw product still raw in whatever form it's in? So for us, this has been a great journey. To Mark's point, we connected with Universal back in 2010 as they started up their first machine, and we've been very pleased with the results that we've had, and I think our record speaks pretty well too. So for us, HPP was a great answer and will be as we move into the future.
I think Aaron said something really important, and at the risk of stating the obvious for this intelligent audience, but when we all look at high pressure processing, those that are involved in the process regularly, we recognize it's not a silver bullet. We know it's a great technology. We know it accomplishes the benefits that we've talked with you today about. But the thing Aaron said that's really, really important, and why I said earlier about how fortunate we feel to be a supplier to Nature's Variety, there is that collaboration and coordination and pursuit of continuous improvement. That while we all recognize the benefits of this technology, the opportunity to lean on each other, as a supplier, as partners in our mutual quest and our mutual pursuit of prosperity. And that really is a key opportunity for any of your HPP suppliers that you're talking to. So our attempt today was to provide a high-level overview. We wanted to hit on some general trends that you as professionals are familiar with, but how it resonates with high-pressure processing and technology, we thought was really important to connect the dots. Second, we talked with you about how the technology can be a critical enabler for cleaner labels. And lastly, as we think about the cleaner labels and the benefit that the technology can bring to your business models, you saw other benefits as well, which is why we are so bullish and passionate about the technology.